Ahoy there, salty sea folk! As you may have noticed, I've gotten a little bit behind on editing, as I was swallowed by a whale, and then I was marooned on an island, and ended up imprisoned on a pirate ship, where the ship's dog ate my first draft of this episode. It's a whole thing, but anyway, the episode you're about to hear was recorded back on the 12th of June, and it's a whale of a tale. I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. By the way, Brett also got swallowed by a whale in the middle of this interview, so he dips out for a bit, then comes back again. It's really busy with the whales out here at the moment. Barrow she blows! You're listening to Word on the Reef, diving into marine science on the Great Barrier Reef and beyond, with Tanya Murphy and Brett Goodban. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Word on the Reef. I'm your host, diver and marine conservationist Tanya Murphy, and with me, as always, is Cairns Aquarium's marine educator and fish whisperer, Brett Goodban.
Good morning. I hope everyone had a great week.
In today's reef news update, a clownfish beloved by magnetic island locals has mysteriously disappeared right after citizen scientists posted a photo and tagged its location online, sparking fears of poaching. Amphiprion percula is the bright orange, white-striped true clownfish species made famous by Finding Nemo. It isn't listed as endangered, however, it is very rare to see them near Magnetic Island. So when one made its home in an anemone at the island in 2022, locals were really excited and named it Island Nemo.
Nice.
For 4 years, marine biologist Lawrence Schill, who we've had on this show way back last year, he photographed Island Nemo regularly as she grew up. Then one day, Island Nemo disappeared. According to Mr. Schill, quote, "This Nemo has survived major flooding events, multiple cyclones, multiple heat waves and bleaching events. When she was taken, there was no disturbance event that would have taken her out." So it turned out well-meaning snorkelers had pinpointed the fish's location when they uploaded a photo to the citizen science app iNaturalist. The app automatically blurs the geolocation of endangered species, but the Amphiprion percula isn't technically endangered on a global scale, so its location was visible on the app. It disappeared immediately afterward, leaving the whole Magnetic Island snorkeling community devastated.
Yeah.
When the snorkelers who posted the picture were contacted, they were understandably pretty distraught, as they are among many ocean lovers who use iNaturalist to help contribute to scientific research, and had no idea people could use the data for illegal poaching. What do you think about that, Brett? Have you ever used iNaturalist or anything like that?
I have, but this really gets the old bald head angry. This does. We should just stop it. But we need to remember that there are people out there that might do this sort of stuff, so we definitely need to be blurring out all of them.
Yeah, but I've used iNaturalist to help contribite to citizen science, and I don't want people to stop doing it. But I think maybe iNaturalist, I hope someone's reached out to them. If they could. iNaturalist, I know you're listening, because why wouldn't you listen to our show, right? Please do something about this. Well, they should blur the location of all the animals, and only scientists who
That's right, and
apply.
If you can prove that you're a scientist, then you get the location. If you don't, then too bad.
Yeah, so a workaround for me, because I'm going to Fitzroy Island tomorrow, not to brag.
Good on you, Chad.
I'm going to probably do some underwater photography and some surveying. So this is really good timing for me to be reminded of this. Yep. If I am uploading a picture of a clownfish, I'm going to deliberately misquote the location by a few hundred metres. So scientists will still get the population data, like they'll know there's clownfish at Fitzroy Island, but they won't know exactly
where. And this is going to happen a bit more, isn't it? Because people can take iPhones down now. As soon as you take a photo with an iPhone, it has the exact location pinpointing to where it is. So we need to be careful with that as well.
Yeah, that's true. You have to actively remove that data. That's right.
You have to turn it off. Yeah.
Let's get on to today's topic.
Really excited about this.
Today's guest is Steven Gill. He's been a tour guide, interpreter and educator in the wet tropics and on the Great Barrier Reef for more than 10 years. During this time, he noticed that many people could swim over a reef or walk through a rainforest surrounded by thousands of fascinating little residents who call these habitats home without even noticing them. And if they did notice them, there might be reactions of fear or disgust at what many of us view as creepy crawlies. Mm-hmm. Stephen realised that thanks to our insular high-tech society, many people have become disconnected from the incredible functions and forms of life that share the planet with us. And it's become his life's obsession to try and change that. And one of the many ways he's changing people's perceptions is through his viral photographs of bugs interacting with Lego.
Love it.
He's done a TEDx talk. He's done 3 tours of Australia performing his amazing Gone Buggo live educational show. He's been on national TV, and now he's finally here on our show.
Yay.
Pinnacle of your career, no doubt, Steve. Good morning.
Absolutely.
You've hit the top, mate.
Welcome to Word on the Reef.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you on the show. To start off, can you please tell us a bit about yourself and your background?
I'm a nerd. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what summarises it best. So I grew up on acreage. I grew up on 27 acres in the country in southeast Queensland, and I remember finding brown snakes in the creek when I was pulling up rocks trying to find yabbies and all sorts of things like that. I was constantly surrounded by nature. My dad moved to Cairns when I was a kid, so I've been snorkeling at Fitzroy Island since I was 6 or 7. You know, I've been on the reef, I've been in the rainforest, I've been in the forest. I've always been around nature, but I never understood it. And it's so easy to take it for granted when it's just a thing that's always there.
Yeah, it's true.
And so it wasn't until I fell into tourism that I found out I'd been kind of missing the point for most of my life. It hit me really hard.
When did you first discover your passion for talking to people about animals?
Well, I've always been passionate about talking. I mean, that wasn't a discovery thing.
Well, that's at least
I'm a
three of
talker. And so, I mean, I'd been in hospitality for years, and I'd been working in tourism destination hospitality. I'd lived on Dunk Island, I lived in Cooktown, I lived at Uluru a couple of times working there. And so I was always engaged in communicating with people and engaging with people. And I moved to Port Douglas 13 or 14 years ago and got a job at a seafood restaurant that overlooked the water at the Dixon Inlet. And they had Queensland giant gropers would come in looking for food every afternoon at 5 o'clock because they'd been feeding them for 18 years, which is amazing because at that time I didn't realise animals could learn, remember and base their day around it. But
yeah, so they always show up just before 5 because they know what time it is.
Yeah. Which is incredible. And that fact alone was amazing. But because I was the new guy, they're like, you need to go and feed the fish because nobody else likes it. So I was always out there feeding this fish, and I just started asking questions about why is it here? You know, what is it doing? Where does it come from? And I started learning about it. And the feeding was a 15-minute thing. They're like, go out there, dangle some fish frames on a rope in the water. If the groper takes it, pull it to the surface so people can see it splash around.
And it just attracts people to the restaurant.
Yeah, and they used to just they had sunset specials and everyone would have a bucket of prawns and a beer and watch this thing happen. But I felt really uncomfortable standing there for 15 minutes not making eye contact with people. Yeah. So as I learned things about the fish, I started shouting them out across the water. And it wasn't easy, but I'm loud, so I can get my voice across a bit of water. So I just started shouting about these fish, and everything I learned came in, and I'd be out there talking about Epinephalus lanceolatus and its, pharyngeal plates and how they crush the shells of the crustaceans that they eat and all of this sort of hoo-ha. And I, over time, started documenting the feeding activity, charting how it reflected salooner activity, and then being able to predict which fish would show up and how many and how they'd behave. And it got to the point where I could say, before I went out there's going to be about 3 fish, and probably one of them will take the bait and it'll put up a bit of a fight, just based on what the moon was doing and the tide was doing.
That's so cool.
Which was stupid, but it sounds silly even to me, but it just paid off over time, and I just got super obsessed with it. I'd go in on my days off and do the fish feed because nobody else liked it. And eventually I got in trouble for talking about fish too much at a seafood restaurant.
Yes. Yeah,
I understand that people were coming from all over town to watch your famous fish feeding show multiple days in a row. And somehow.
Boat skippers and tourism staff and stuff. They would come
their
back
sales must have gone through the roof, mate.
Well, they did, but that wasn't necessarily reflected in the management's views on me making it different than it had been for 18 years.
Yeah, right. Trying to make a personal connection with the fish while they're serving fish.
So I went down to the marina and I just started applying to boats. I was like, look, I like talking about fish. You talk about fish for a living. Can I come and do what you do? And I got a job on a boat, started working in reef tourism, had no idea what I was doing, but I could talk about Queensland giant gropers for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, I've got my best mate at the aquarium, Chang. He's our big Queensland groper.
Oh, and it's a beautiful specimen.
I always spend time with him in the morning. I can stand there and wave him over because they recognise you.
Absolutely.
He's a drama queen. He's judgy. And he's got a full attitude, but he's definitely the star of our oceanarium. He's my best mate.
But that's the thing. I mean, if you can get away with it, when you're that big, you can be a diva.
And that's the thing, right? He's like, excuse me coming through.
Yeah.
I own this tank. Sharks can back off.
So that's a great story, Steve, of how you found your passion for talking about fish and then went and got a job on the reef.
Yep.
How did you first get the idea to start photographing animals on Lego?
Well, I mean, it was a bit of a jump from getting in trouble at a restaurant to that.
Just a little one.
The reef company that I work for in Port Douglas is called Calypso, and Calypso have a rainforest tour as well. So I was working on the boats, I was doing a lot of boat stuff, but I had the license to drive the bus, so they asked me if I'd train into the rainforest. And initially I said no because I thought the rainforest was boring.
Wow.
I didn't want to do it. And then they took me on a tour. They made me come on one just to see what it looked like. And I was absolutely flabbergasted at what I'd never learned about the rainforest. You know, I just thought it was boring because when I walk through it, I don't see anything. And then I went with this guy who'd been doing it for years and years. And he was like, look at this and look at this and look at this. And this does this and this does this. And that kind of changed everything. So I got into the rainforest. I got obsessed with the rainforest as well. And then I was working reef and rainforest tours for years. And I got into this sort of bit where I was digging deeper, finding small things, finding intricate connections, and then found myself really disappointed that when I pointed out stuff that was really rare, really endemic, really unique, really important, most people were just like, oh, it's just a grasshopper. And you're like,
Your eyes glaze over.
Absolutely.
Do you know this grasshopper is found nowhere else?
And then so I sort of tried to layer that into it. Like, you have to build the importance of endemism before you point out the grasshopper, so that by the time you say that is only here, people at least let you say it without interrupting to point out that it's a grasshopper, you know? Because we have all these really rare orthopterans specifically. The katydids are phenomenal in the Daintree, and they're one of the few things you can find quite reliably. But they're also really important for foliar consumption and breakdown, nutrient recycling. So trying to point to a grasshopper and having a busload of people just be like, this is boring, where are the crocodiles, you know? And so I was already building this idea that these bugs are important but nobody cares. And then maybe almost 7 years ago, I had this opportunity to photograph a baby death adder. And it was tiny, minuscule snakes. I mean, they're live-born snakes. So the babies just slide out and disappear. They don't even thank their parents. They just
they leg it.
Well, they leg it. Famously, snakes and their legs just running away.
That's it.
And so I had this opportunity to photograph this tiny little deadly, fast-striking snake, and I was like, how do you show how small this is? And I wasn't going to put my hand near it, didn't want to die. So I just put it on a Lego base plate with a Lego minifigure with a net. And I just thought, you know, everybody knows how big a Lego person is. They haven't changed size since 1978. So it's a pretty good standard scale. And I took the photo and found out two things very rapidly. When I showed people a photo, nobody can remember how big a Lego person is. Every time I'll be halfway through a presentation and I'll be showing all these photos of animals on Lego, and the idea for me, which I state clearly at the start of the show, is because you know how big the Lego person is, you know the relative size of the animal. And normally about halfway through, someone will be, how big is that one? Like, you know a Lego person, right?
You've got to explain it every time.
So I've started taking a Lego person to shows now, and I'll just pull the Lego person out my pocket and go, see this? This is that now relative to that.
Is a Lego person like 2 centimeters tall or something?
Oh, I've never measured one. I just take them for
I can
granted.
guarantee you will now.
Well, I've got some in the car, so I will absolutely. So I had this snake photo, and when I showed it to people, they were really interested in the interplay. Like, I hadn't put a lot of effort into the story or the photo. But everyone was like, why is she... Because it was a female researcher with a net, which is... I pull a lot of nostalgia in. She was from the 1997 Adventurers series. It was a big thing for me. I have a daughter, so women in science. There was a lot of reasons why I used a female with a net, but none of them had anything to do with her wanting to catch this giant deadly snake. But people wanted to know, why is she trying to catch the snake? Why has she got such a small net? Isn't the snake going to kill her? And then you just realise that you can take a simple photo and just have people be engaged with it. So I started building bigger sets and taking bigger photos.
And that's the thing, it just opens up that massive conversation. I mean, I feel your pain with the insects because we have the giant burrowing cockroaches and that at work, right?
Yeah.
And the first thing they do is they walk up and they go, ooh, and I say, excuse me. Excuse me. And then I go through the whole process of how they decompose and they mulch all that so it doesn't end up on the reef, high nutrient, etc. And they go, wow, that's pretty awesome. What's that? So that's 3 seconds later. Oh, it's a stick insect.
Yeah, cockroaches are in every single presentation I do. Cockroaches are like my pinnacle of every
we got
talk.
Tim Tam and Slam.
Yeah,
out 3 at work. You could ride them to school, mate. They're huge.
Tim Tam Slam.
Tim Tam and Slam.
Very good. What is that? Yeah. Macropeniesthus rhinoceros, isn't it?
Yeah, the big one.
Them. They're amazing.
We've got to bridge back into marine-related stuff somehow. So speaking of arthropods, which underwater creatures have you photographed with Lego?
Not enough yet. I went for the easy targets first, so still work on the reef. I still do marine science courses with American college students. I still do reef tours, so I have the opportunity every now and then to get out there. So I photographed a couple of nudibranchs, a couple of close-up corals, because obviously polyp size is something that's really hard to get people to focus on when you're snorkeling, especially on a bad day. You know, you're out there like you're not sick, but everyone else is a little bit queasy, and you're like, look at the size of the polyps and their tentacles.
Yeah, and they're just trying to grab the sick bag.
Yeah. So I went for polyps and corals. It's hard to find anything that's really comfortable staying with Lego in the water. So I don't want to manipulate the animals. I try and avoid that as much as possible, especially when it's a marine thing and it's a wild animal. I need to do it in situ, and I want to do it with no impact to the animals. So I've done some blue pallet surgeonfish with Dory from Finding Nemo. But what I did was I made a submarine that floats, and I tethered it to a dive weight and put it behind the little plate coral that they were hiding in. So then I just had to leave them for a while to get comfortable with the submarine that was floating around, and then dive down and get a photo from the other side.
They would have been like, what the heck is that?
Well, they were more worried about me than the submarine by the time I showed up. So they were all a little bit shy about me, but they were okay with the weird bobbing submarine situation.
Oh, it's just another submarine, girls.
Just another submarine, absolutely. I mean, you know Dory's forgetful anyway, right?
She does, yeah.
Every time they turn around, what the heck is that again?
Look at submarine. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've done a Silicyrata, a giant mud crab, which is the best photo I've ever taken. But the grail species that I've just managed to find someone who can help me with is a blue-line cleaner wrasse.
Just a quick note for any listeners who aren't familiar with the blue-line cleaner wrasse. This thin 10 centimetre fish survives by picking out trapped food particles, dead skin and parasites from the teeth, gills and skin of larger fish. Think of Billy Blueline the cleaner wrasse like your marine dentist, doctor and beauty therapist. Along with his team of female staff, he establishes his business in an area known as a cleaning station, and client fish queue up for their turn. These large predatory fish allow Billy Blueline and his team to swim around in their mouth unharmed. Because the cleaning service is so essential for their health, they wouldn't risk it for a small snack. Removing cleaner wrasse from a reef causes significant declines in the local fish population, so they really are essential to our reef ecosystems.
When I want to talk about the interconnectedness, the community that is an ecosystem, the cleaner wrasse is such a central part of that to uniform health, community health, their importance on the reef, the intelligence, the psychology, the understanding that we have about them is critical. And I have gone out with weighted sets and put them in the middle of cleaning stations. And what I've found is in the wild, the cleaner wrasses just move. Nobody's coming to a cleaning station while there's a fake Lego bathroom sitting in the middle of there.
There at the front car park.
So what I've had to do is find someone who has a cleaner wrasse that it's already a captive specimen, because I wouldn't go out and scoop one out of a cleaning station. No, that'd be horrible. But, if I can get an aquarium-based cleaner wrasse and photograph a cleaner wrasse, then that one photo, and I've made a car wash, obviously.
Yeah.
You got to lean on DreamWorks and Shark Tale.
That's it, Shark's Tale.
Got to
Yes.
go with that whole car wash idea.
The Rastafarian gangster jellyfish.
So I've just finished building the car wash. I've now got someone who's got the cleaner wrasse, and now it's just a matter of putting all the pieces together, because that is such a big photo. That's going to be a really, really good intern opportunity.
Wow.
I spend 15 minutes in my Coral Sea talk every day talking about the three amigos. We've got three. And they do that big run from one side of the Coral Sea tank to the other, trying to chase the rays, and then they catch up with them again. They're just incredible little critters.
They are. And tenacious.
They're cheeky.
It's funny, like, on the one hand, I paint them as this pivotal service and that everybody wants this and needs this. But then you go out in the wild and you see all the fish just happen to swim past a cleaning station and the wrasse comes up and it's not having a go at
Excuse me.
Yeah. It's like the windscreen wipers at the red lights,
Or the raffle ticket sellers outside Woolies on a 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
And you're like, no, I don't want that
Oh,
today.
good, thanks.
You see these fish always like, just go away, Barry. Just leave me alone.
So they're hawkers. They're hawking their services.
Essentially,
Excuse me, do you want to clean? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining the fish chasing after a ray going, excuse me, sir, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ?
Do you know what? I've actually thought about that in my show once. Right in the middle of it, I just cracked up, and then I've looked across at everyone and gone, it's fine.
You're doing better than me. Those things come out my mouth before my brain processes.
Well, that's what makes us professionals, is being able to dig yourself out of the hole afterwards,
That's it.
right?
The trick to it is going to a well-placed ad break.
There you go. Oh,
That's a great segue.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Steve, I understand Katy Perry comes into this story. How did she play a
here we
major
go.
role in Gone Buggo and your insect photography going
My
viral?
mate, Katy. Look, it was interesting. So I'd been photographing animals on Lego for a few years by the point that Katy came into my life. And as a tour guide, I was actually really embarrassed about my photos, and I didn't share them with everyone because I was really happy with the art that I was creating, but I was concerned that viewers would have questions about the ethics of it. But I, as an animal lover, had done everything as ethically as possible, but I was really sort of shy and secretive about the photos I was taking. So I had a small portfolio of images that only a few people knew about. And then Katy Perry showed up. And I was working at the time, this was just after COVID had happened, tourism had collapsed for a time, and I was working as a full-time gardener at a luxury resort in Mossman, and Orlando was shooting a movie in the Daintree. So Katy and Orlando, when they were together, came to stay at our hotel for 10 days. And I didn't know who they were. I just got told not to put my foot in my mouth while I was unloading the bags. Gee, she had a lot of bags because they'd come to Australia for a movie period, you know. So she had, I think it was like 16 or 18 bags with her, and they got me to help move the bags into the room. So I'm moving the bags and I'm seeing these people, and I was talking to this woman about her little girl who's just a little bit younger than mine, who's Daisy, and just having this mad chat with this stranger. And I did not at any point realise it was Katy Perry, but she had a big hat and she had big sunnies. She was kind of trying to be incognito.
Yep.
So we had a mad chat on day one about travel, about kids, about all sorts of stuff, about the rainforest. And then when I got back to the head office, they were like, so you're not going to tell anyone you just talked to Katy Perry? And I was like, that was Katy Perry? What? And then every day she was just there in the hotel because she wasn't there to do work. She was just there to relax. And so every day as the gardener, she'd just walk past and I'd be like, hey, Katy. And so...
You want to have a go at me whippersnipper?
Yeah, just making small talk with Katy Perry, you know. So by the time that we had a talk about Lego, I'd seen her a number of times. We'd had a bit of a chat. And then I was working on an irrigation, of all things, and she was standing on the boardwalk nearby holding Daisy, just waiting for other people. And I wasn't going to ignore her, but I didn't know what to say. And I'm very blunt, so I just turned to her and said, do you let Daisy play with your Lego? Because I knew that they had Lego, because Orlando during COVID had gone on to like late night TV shows talking about what he was doing during lockdown, and he built Lego. He's been made into a Lego person at least twice. So he had a whole room with Lego sets on the wall. Wow. And so I just knew she had it and just, do you let the kid play with the Lego? Such a smooth entry into a conversation.
Could have gone anywhere.
And she, because we'd already been talking, she went, we don't let her play with the little stuff because she'll choke, but we do give her the Duplo so she gets to play with that. And then she said, why do you let your daughter play with Lego? And I went, yeah, absolutely. She said, so you've got Lego? I went, yeah, we've got Lego. She said, what do you do with yours?
Yep.
And in retrospect, she said, because, and then I cut her off. Because she asked the right question. I think she was going to tell me that they had a room where they displayed it, but I cut her off and went, oh, you'd never believe it. And I showed her my photos on my phone, and I've jumped up onto the boardwalk and I've got my phone out and I'm showing her all these photos of animals on Lego, and she loved it. She stole my phone off me, snatched it out of my hand, went through the folder as fast as she could. She's like, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen. And then she ran away with my phone and went into the restaurant to find her assistant and Orlando's kid, Flynn, and everyone she was traveling with. And she showed all of them. I was watching, just standing there like, Katy Perry just stole my phone. And I was watching her show these other people these photos on my phone. And then she came back. She's like, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen. And I was like, surely not. She's like, no, this is the coolest thing I have ever seen. I want to follow you on social media. Do you have social media? I was like, no, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm embarrassed about this. I'm not going to show the world. She's like, I want to follow you. So I had to make an account for Katy. And
so she was your first follower?
Well, she should have been, but she was my 20th. I mean, my wife got in first and then a whole bunch of other people.
That's probably safer that way, mate.
You know, it would look a lot better if Katy Perry was my first one. She was my 20th, which really doesn't hit the same way. No. But it was super cool. So she workshopped all these ideas. The business is called Gone Buggo because of her, because I didn't have any ideas about it. And she's like, you need a name that sounds like Lego. It's got to sound like Lego. And I'm like, Buggo? She's like, that's... I was like, Gone Buggo? She's like, yeah, that'll do. So I went with Gone Buggo because it's gone Troppo, there's bugs, and it sounds like Lego. The whole thing was... And she's like, you got to protect yourself as an artist and you got to copyright everything and all of this great advice. So I went home, made an Instagram, went to work the next day, and somebody else told her before I had a chance to even see her. And so I was just in a garden working, and Katy Perry came into the garden with her phone and went, look, I'm following you. She showed me her phone screen, and that was sort of the start of it. And then I think I got like 3,000 followers in the first month because Katy Perry was one of them.
Nice.
Just everyone that follows her and anyone that's interested in her, because she doesn't follow many things. But yeah, so that was where that all started. I don't think I would have a business today if I didn't have Katy Perry at the start of it, because I never believed in it.
It just goes to show the power of someone believing in you, and that's a good message for all of us.
Yeah, that's it.
To tell people who have a skill to believe in themselves and encourage them, like Katy helped encourage you.
The awkward caveat there is lots of other people had encouraged me to do it before her.
Oh, so you'll do it for Katy, but you won't do it for us.
That's exactly what my wife said. She said, I've been telling you to get on social media with this for ages. I was like, yeah, but it's different. A lot of people did believe in me more than I believed in myself, but Katy Perry had a lot more clout than my friends.
So the message is, don't politely ask people to use their gifts, steal their phone and forcefully enforce them to use their gifts.
Basically, yeah.
All right. Well, we need to talk about the environment, because the purpose behind your Lego photos is much more than just having a bit of fun, which it obviously is a lot of fun. But what is the deeper purpose behind the Lego photographs and what you're trying to get through to people with?
You know, we have built ourselves a plastic world.
Yeah.
At the expense of nature. And photographing nature within a plastic world makes the viewer go, is that right? How do I feel about a little bit of nature in a whole lot of plastic?
Yeah, it really gets that conversation going, doesn't it?
Humans moving into these insular, air-conditioned, fabricated realities, we've detached ourselves from the world that we require to survive at the expense of that world.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know, we have, especially through agriculture, built an idea about what the world is, what it means, what we can do to it, what we can get from it, that isn't necessarily great for the world. And bugs, definitely, invertebrates, suffer for that. I mean, in the last 50 years, 75% of all the insect biomass on the planet has disappeared.
Yeah, it's horrific, isn't it?
It's astounding. Yeah. In Puerto Rico, over 95% of all the insects in the national parks have disappeared. There's no agriculture there. They're not spraying pesticides there. in the middle of a protected habitat. Almost all of the critical service providers have disappeared, and there will be secondary effects and feedback loops coming through from all of the lizards and the frogs and the birds not being able to eat anything, and then what we lose in pollination and what, we have built ourselves a plastic world at the expense of nature.
I think a lot of people might have noticed, if they've been on the planet for as long as me, that is the less bugs that you get stuck on your windscreen at night.
Absolutely.
Because I honestly only remember it from when I was a kid, getting a lot of bugs.
They've stopped putting soap in the windscreen washers at service stations because nobody's got anything to clean off these days. Normally it's just fresh water now.
I never have to clean my windscreen
when I was young, and you had to dose it with soap. And I mean, I drove down to Melbourne with one of the shows, or for all of the shows I've driven. But the whole drive from Port Douglas to Melbourne, I cleaned my windscreen one time and it was dirt. It wasn't the bugs.
Sad.
But the irony of that is every time a bug hits my windscreen, there's a part of me that's happy and a part of me that's very sad because I'm like, I just killed a bug. But at least there was bugs.
So there are many reef guides out on the Great Barrier Reef, and there are many rainforest guides in the Daintree, but not so many people are well versed in both, and that's a divide you're bridging. What's the connection between the reef and the rainforest?
Oh, goodness me. What isn't the connection between the reef and the rainforest? I mean, obviously, the hydrology would be the most simplistic approach to it. We now know that dimethyl sulfide produced through coral photosynthesis acts as a hydrophilic aerosol, so it oxidizes off the water's surface throughout the daylight hours, converts into dimethyl sulfoxide and attracts cloud mass. So corals are essentially building cloud mass over themselves, either inadvertently, accidentally, or intentionally, depending on how you want to talk about, intelligent design. They put up an umbrella so they don't get sunburnt, which is genius. But that umbrella gets blown away by our southeast trade winds, which pushes it towards land. So you have these dense, moist bodies of air traveling over the coastlines, which are then recondensed through the hydrophilic aerosols that are produced through photosynthesis of land plants, and then the mountain range up here in the north, which changes its altitude and therefore changes its temperature. And as those clouds travel up, they condense, they form on the mountain tops, and then you get your cloud stripping. So there isn't a lot of science that I've found to really lock all of that together, but I think one of the easiest anecdotal points that I could refer to show how important that relationship is that when the northern section of the Great Barrier Reef bleached in 2016, we hardly got any rain in the Daintree rainforest because there was no coral photosynthesis, no cloud seeding, none of that going on. And there was 4 years following that 2016 period where there was significantly reduced rainfalls because of potentially, although I'm not qualified to say with any authority, but potentially a significant reduction in coral coverage. Then, of course, the rain that would form on the rainforest and the mountaintops is going to gather loose debris, which is the dominant source of nutrition for our rainforest in the rainforest, and have that wash down those watercourses, gather in the mangrove ecosystems where it would be broken down in highly saline environments through, the plethora of gastropods, microbiota, crustaceans and things in there, and converted into smaller forms of nutrition which would eventually wash out to sea. So you have, we already know that there's marine organisms that move inland and live in estuarine systems and freshwater systems for safety when they're young. But then we also have an understanding that potentially nutrition from the rainforest is somehow benefiting at least the inshore reefs, possibly the patch reefs, and potentially the outer barrier reef when it's close enough to land. And there was, from my experience anecdotally, during that 2016, 17, 18, 19 period, a distinct decline in both ecosystems that I saw lots of parallels in. As the reef was bleaching, as the coral was suffering and struggling and unable to sustain itself successfully, the rainforest went through a desiccation event that led to a lack of new growth, a lack of flowering, a lack of fruiting, which I don't know if anyone's even studying how the insect biomass was affected by 4 years of no flowers. But what I do know is that I didn't see a flower for 4 years of day tours in the rainforest while the reef was simultaneously struggling. So we have an ancient rainforest and an enormous reef system that are potentially intricately interwoven. And it's not that it's always been that relationship. Of course, the reef hasn't always been there. The Daintree rainforest is potentially 140, 160, some people even say 180 million years old. And the Great Barrier Reef has nothing on that. But there have been significant changes in the way the hydrology of the Daintree has worked throughout geological time. And presently, it seems like a lot of the rain that makes the rainforest a rainforest still starts on the reef. And a lot of what keeps the reef going the way that we love it and know it in this region would be fed by the rainforest in some way. Yeah, we've talked a lot on this show about runoff in previous episodes, and so, you know, there used to be a lot more rainforest in North and Far North Queensland and all of Queensland, and so the nutrient balance that used to come from the rainforest having been deforested and replaced with synthetic chemicals and fertilizers is obviously not a one-for-one replacement. It's causing very different impacts than what the reef was adapted to. So that's why the loss of that rainforest and replacing it with farm chemicals has probably had a bigger impact on the reef than what we already know about or understand. And those relationships have built up over really slow geological time. Even though the reef isn't 200 million years old like the Daintree, it has been there for thousands of years. So they've slowly built this relationship. And if we break that relationship down in just the space of a few decades with climate change and things, it's too fast for them to adapt to. So it's a really important thing to be aware of. What are some of the funniest or strangest questions you've been asked by guests on the reef? I think probably the funniest question I've ever had in marine discussions was a Gone Buggo presentation in which there was nothing about eels whatsoever. In the middle of a presentation to a class full of kids, one kid put his hand up and said, "Why don't eels have genitals?" And we had to have a talk about the life cycle of what we consider to be the freshwater eels around here, which actually start their lives in the ocean, migrate inland, migrate uphill, and then spend years, maturing in billabongs and watercourses and dams up on the plateaus before finally migrating back out to sea, converting their digestive equipment into reproductive equipment, and then engaging in one fatal reproductive event, which will then give rise to the next generation of eels.
Oh, which type of eel is that?
I think it's the long-finned or the short-finned eel in this region. But he'd been catching these eels and had wondered why they never had any genitals. And I answered it in great depth without trying to get too graphic because these kids were like 9 years old. But it was a fascinating question because it is a fascinating thing, conversion of reproductive organs and digestive organs is something invertebrates do. Moths, like the Hercules moth, for example, it eats as a caterpillar and it breeds as an adult, but it doesn't do both things at once. It just converts the equipment from one thing to the other throughout metamorphosis. It's weird for an eel to do it, but it's cool to talk about in a bug show. So I talked about it, and when I'd finished this complex answer about reproductive biology, another kid put their hand up and said, "What's genitals?" And that was where I called it. I said, "You can talk to your teacher about that afterwards."
While we're on the species of crazy marine life, this show's been going for 70 plus episodes. We've had turtle experts, shark experts, manta ray experts, but there's a plethora of animals that I still don't know about. That eel was one of them. What is one of the most interesting animals that wouldn't have already been talked about on this show or that is underappreciated that you want to tell us about?
Well, I mean, I've already admitted that the cleaner wrasse is probably my favourite. And I think one of the things that I really admire with the cleaner wrasse is the utility in talking about fish intelligence and psychology, which is not something that comes into most discussions about marine life. And the blue line cleaner wrasse has been extensively studied and shown to have very versatile processing capacities when it comes to food sources. And so often in my marine interp, I like to quote a quote that is often attributed to Albert Einstein, but he didn't say it, which is that everyone is a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its life believing that it is an idiot. And first and foremost, that quote is used often to talk about specific intelligences in children and the schooling system. I like to change the quote and say that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you will spend your whole life believing that it is an idiot. And I think that's an important thing to note. If you think fish are stupid because they can't climb trees, you're missing out.
Yeah.
And we do often, or we used to, it's not as common these days, relate brain size and brain size to body ratio with intelligence. So to take a tiny fish that must have a tiny brain and talk about how intelligent it is reframes that. But what I like to say to people in regards to that particular idea is all humans have the same or very similar brain to body ratio. So if you just bring to mind the dumbest person you've ever met and realize that they had the same brain to body ratio as Albert Einstein, you already know that that must be wrong. The size of the brain in the body doesn't equal intelligence. Intelligence is highly variable, highly versatile, and having a tiny fish with a tiny brain that exhibits theory of mind, which is probably the bit that I really, really like with the cleaner wrasses. There was a study done that showed cleaner wrasses would modify their behaviour based on who was watching them. So cleaner wrasses obviously exploit the confidence of other fish. A cleaning station is a safe space where any organism that needs to be cleaned can sit and expose its most vulnerable parts, its gills and its teeth and everything else, and allow these fish access to pick things out of their body that, I mean, you wouldn't let your best friend do it to you, you know, except after a big night. So they go everywhere. They touch everything. They do everything. It's a very confidence-based relationship.
Trust.
And the wrasse knows that if it abuses the trust of the client won't return. And we know that with local fish that will repeatedly visit a cleaning station, the wrasses are always on their best behaviour, because if you abuse your clientele, you lose your clientele. But we've also now seen in studies that if the cleaner wrasse is being watched by a local fish, it doesn't matter who they're cleaning. If the locals can see what they're doing, they are on their best behaviour.
Business reputation. They don't want to get a bad review on Google.
Exactly it. It's theory of mind. The idea that an organism is aware that another organism is aware of them. So if there's nobody watching and it's a client you can stand to lose, cleaner wrasses will take a bite of fresh flesh. But if there's somebody watching, even if the client is someone you could stand to lose, you're on your best behaviour because you don't want to lose the client that can see you behaving badly.
Wow.
And that psychology reframes so much, because fish are normally just these, I was raised to believe they didn't have thoughts or feelings or memories. Memory like a goldfish, you know. We now know goldfish can remember things for over a year. So most of what we think about intelligence, about cognition, about consciousness, about, you know, social behaviour needs to be re-explored through these kinds of connections. And that's why the cleaner wrasse is such a big one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are humans who don't actually have the capacity to understand what their clients are looking for, or
absolutely,
or run a business that's successful.
Yeah, you see lots of branded business vehicles driving very dangerously on the road that seem to forget they have their name and phone number on the side.
See, you should have taken a leaf from the cleaner wrasse. Remember who's watching when you're doing...
Or just always behave like somebody's watching and try not to do the wrong thing.
Wow, yes, there's been entire books written about the intelligence of fish, the fact that they know what day and time it is because they'll show up to areas where they know they're going to get fed.
Like a 5 o'clock fish feed.
Ahead of time, yep. They have many types of intelligence that are similar to humans or completely different, because they know things that we don't know about how to survive in the ocean, that's for sure. you said you have a very different way of thinking, but it wasn't always appreciated when you were growing up and at school. What advice do you have for other people out there who might be struggling to find their purpose in life or to have the confidence in their ability that they can make a difference?
Well, I've been doing a lot of multi-day trips with school groups in ecological studies, bit of reef, bit of rainforest, and a lot of kids feel like they don't fit in. A lot of kids are worried that what they like isn't worthwhile or isn't valuable. And I like to tie what I have learned and what I share about nature into an inspiring, uplifting, motivational thing. And one of the things that is true for nature and ecosystems is that monocultures don't work and that ecology thrives on diversity. Resilience in an ecosystem comes from having a multitude of things that provide a multitude of different benefits that offset each other's negative impacts. In nature, there are things that eat other animals, but then they have their role to play in nature. There are animals that eat plants, but they have their role to play in nature. And in an ecosystem, and in all complex ecology around the world, we see that there is a space for almost everything. It just needs to be in the right place. Sometimes it's very hard to find that space, but it's hardest to find that space in areas where a monoculture is being pursued.
Yeah.
You won't find one random tree in the middle of a paddock filled with sugarcane because the paddock filled with sugarcane has been cultivated to specifically be only sugarcane.
Yeah.
But those paddocks then become vulnerable, and agriculture worldwide, industrial agriculture, has proven exactly what's wrong with monocultures, both ideologically and literally, in that you become vulnerable, you become exposed. Society, the future of humanity, requires every weirdo out there to just be themselves and do what they love and flourish for who they are. I mean, some of the biggest change makers in human history didn't fit in. They were strange people who had strange ideas that upset the status quo, but through doing that, made the world a better place. So people who are struggling to find their place, I would say, don't try and change who you are to fit into a monoculture, but be true to yourself and be resilient until such time as you can find a place where your strengths are valued.
Yep. Absolutely. That's another topic I could nerd out on for a whole separate episode, having learned about syntropic agriculture, which is it's the sort of thing that the traditional cultures did, like the Native Americans. They would grow corn, beans and squash all together in the same paddock, and it was a huge success because the corn provides a frame for the beans to crawl up, the beans does the nitrogen fixing to fertilize the soil, and the squash leaves shade out the weeds. So they didn't need pesticides, herbicides or anything. By having a diversity of different plants and animals, they actually thrive best together. Whereas now, if we only grow corn by itself as a monoculture, there's a lot more pests and weeds and problems, and you have to use nitrogen fertilizer because you don't have the beans there to provide it naturally, and so on and so forth. So we've gotten monocultures to the stage where it's really hyper productive factory line, but it's costing a lot to the planet. So what changes have you seen on the reef over your time visiting it and teaching people about it?
So, I mean, I've been working on the reef for 12 years now. I've been snorkeling since I was a kid. So I've got over 30 years worth of snorkeling in the region, but at least 12 years working professionally in the industry. And I was present and working on the reef during the 2015-16 event, the 17 event. I've watched the bad stuff happen. And during that period specifically, I personally focused on calling out the elephant in the room with climate change and that negative effect that it had, but also focusing on the silver lining that often got forgotten when we talked about the cloud, which was the resilience, the versatility, the adaptability of the things that were still present. And now one of the things that I find quite rewarding about going back to places that I have watched struggle through adversity is that where there was absolute devastation, there are things attempting recovery. And it's so rewarding to see life be so tenacious and continue to attempt to recover. Unfortunately, those attempts, of course, are always going to be impeded by subsequent events and the frequency of events. But to watch life continue to fight, no matter how hard it gets hit, always gives me hope.
Yeah. I really hope eventually when we get our carbon emissions under control, there'll still be some corals left in the ocean, and then they can be the ones to repopulate everywhere again. You know, I hope that some pockets of the species that we love will be able to remain, but it's really ourselves that will suffer the most.
That's the truth of everything that we're doing to the environment at the moment. At the end of the day, it's all going to feed back. It's all going to impact us, and life will find ways to recover, but human society as we know it may not. The further we push it, the harder it becomes to maintain a stable relationship with these things, and we are often cutting off our nose to spite our face without realising what's at risk. So it's nice to know that nature is resilient, and it's nice to know that nature is willing to fight. But it's just that we need to ease off the pressure, ease off the gas, and understand that we, as part of nature, need to fight as well alongside them, so that we all stand a chance of coming out. The whole world is connected, and we have enough science now to show how, Saharan dust feeds the Amazon and how the reef makes rain and all of these things. The world is connected, and we are connected to it. And one of the things in all environmental interp that I try and drive home is that you are not separate from this. You are this. We are nature, and nature is us, and it's not like we can kill it without hurting ourselves. The biggest misconception that humans invented was that we were somehow separate from and insulated from what we were doing to the world around us. And pre-literate societies felt that, lived that, knew that. Look at the First Nations people and their relationship with the land. It was intertwined, it was interwoven, and the stories that they told that gave voices to the animals and to the landscape made them aware intimately, personally, that it was all part of them and they were all part of it. As soon as humans put themselves up on a pedestal and believed that they were somehow separate and in charge of, we lost the reins and we started running off the road. And now here we are looking at this thing falling apart. And what people need to reconnect with is the fact that you are nature and nature is you.
What can people do to help protect our reef and all our beautiful animals that make our world not only more interesting, but also more inhabitable for us?
So my 3 things that I share, there's 3.5, I suppose. One of them is insecticides and pesticides. Now, agricultural runoff, but also just domestic chemical use in general. It harms your garden, it harms your local environments, and then it runs off into the sea. And sediment and water quality, of course, on the reef is a massive thing. So what we use at home will impact the reef and the marine environment. So I say to people, stop using broad-scale killing products, especially to solve simple problems. If you have cockroaches in your house, killing every animal around your house just to get rid of that one problem might not be the solution that it looks like, when you could have targeted the cockroaches or looked for the root cause of the problem and targeted that instead. Cockroaches are a feedback loop, so if you have less garbage and less food and less habitat, there will be less of them. And if you have more, there will be more. So maybe killing the cockroaches isn't the first place to look. So reducing those chemicals, planting native plants, and I mean normally in a garden sense, but of course in all of our green spaces, having more parks, having more wetlands, having more habitat, especially native habitat. Far North Queensland is so fascinated with Southeast Asian and South American plants. And from a gardening perspective, I used to walk people around the resort that I met Katy Perry at and point out how many of the plants were not from Australia and how few of the plants were local, because it's just part of our cultural value set that pretty plants equal good plants. And Far North Queensland, because of its age, isn't home to what we believe is pretty. Our forest predates bees. So
There's
everything,
not as many flowers then.
yeah, so everything that we understand as flowers drawing pollinators doesn't really exist that much in our rainforest. So we don't celebrate native plants because we don't understand them. We're taught that big flowers equal pretty flowers, we plant non-natives, and then we degrade our habitat, which then leads to all of the issues that flow out to sea. And then sustainable choices as a consumer. So buying organic is good, pesticide-free is good. Obviously, the pinnacle is the eco-organic sort of aspirations of people who aren't just using non-synthetics. They're actually just not using chemicals, regardless of the point of origin, or minimising that use as much as possible so that the ecosystem sustains itself. So as consumers, supporting the right decisions will instill those decisions higher up the chain. Each of us has the ability to modify the feedback that we get from the world around us. Vote for the wrong politicians, get the wrong political decisions. Vote for the right ones, get the right ones. Ask the local politicians to support the reef, and they will. Don't ask them, and they won't. It's a feedback loop. And so what we do in our own backyard, it affects the world around us. And here our backyard is going to end up in the reef. So all of those things tie together.
Yep, those are some really good steps that everyone, all our listeners can consider in their daily lives. Be curious, learn as much as you can about the world around you, and share that with other people and use your communication skills. Where can people head for more information and to check out your stuff?
My website has links to pretty much everything. So if you just go to gonebuggo.com, Gonebuggo, gonebuggo.com, and then there's links. There's the TED Talk, there's the TV appearances, the social media stuff, the Etsy shop with the merchandise, the podcast, everything through there. So
Yeah, awesome. I think we've got listeners across Australia and the world, and even those locally who might be real interested in going on one of your tours now. So
they would be so welcome to come.
Yeah.
I'm happy to go and do bug talks and walk around the forest or go to the reef.
sadly, that's all we have time for today. Steven Gill, thanks for all your amazing work, and thanks for joining us on Word on the Reef today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been an honour, mate. Thank you. Awesome.
And thanks to all our listeners for joining us on Word on the Reef with me, Tanya Murphy, and co-host Brett Goodban. We'll be back next week with more marine science adventures, 10 a.m. Friday on Cairns FM 89.1. This show is broadcast live from the Cairns FM studio, which is on the land of the Gimoy Wallabarri Yidinji people. We'd like to extend our respect to elders past and present. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.